Alright, what's going on, guys? This is just going to be a general overview of how I constructed a bluetongue skink enclosure. It's a bioactive setup with auto misting and some flora and fauna in there. And I used some $5 Facebook Marketplace furniture. I did end up trying to do a one-take voiceover here, so bear with me if I'm not super clear. I didn't really want to deal with splicing things together. This is the original piece of furniture you can see here in this clip. I did get it for $5 off Facebook Marketplace. I don't know why you would charge someone $5, as it was a pain to transport and probably wasn't worth much. I was hoping this was real wood, but it was mostly particle board. There's Drylock Original, that's what I'm going to use to be waterproofing the inside. There's great stuff. And then there are some supplies on Amazon I got, like Mr. Silicone, acrylic paint to color the Drylock, and vinyl track for sliding glass. This is a paintable adhesive if you want to seal something and then paint over it with Drylock or another paint. So the first thing I did was I went ahead and removed the cheap thin backing, and then kind of got the shape I wanted. I used some wood putty to fill in. And then I went ahead and used some 1x4 and some, I guess it's 1x2 to create a frame, and then there's a 2x2 on top. I also installed plywood on the back. You can see here that most of this is particle board. I went ahead and roughed it up to prep for Drylock. There, I'm showing the screws there. And I did remove the trim. There we go. Unfortunately, this piece of furniture is mostly particle board and not real wood, which is why it's so heavy, because particle board is heavier and weaker, so that was a bummer. Alright, so here's the first coat of Drylock. As you can see, it's very, very thin, and that's to ensure that the additional coats stick. Here's coat number 2. As you can see, it's so thin that the sand particles in the Drylock that give it texture are not even sticking that well. I went ahead and drilled out these slots here to make into vents later. Those were already in there because the various shelves and stuff had hinges that kind of slid in that area, I think. And then you can see I have screwed in the back and drilled some holes for cables and hoses to go through, and sanded down the outside as well a little bit. There I am test fitting the track to order the glass custom. Here's the first coat of Drylock that I dyed with some acrylic paint. It's a lot lighter gray than I would have liked, but you can't go much darker and still have the Drylock really be Drylock. It kind of starts to become paint. There I am after applying the spray foam background. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube for this, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm starting to carve it out here in the shape that I want, and I ended up picking a lot of it out just with my hands. Here's that first coat of paint, Drylock that is, on the background. I probably should have done more coats than I did. Here's the second one here. I think I did 2 or 3, followed by the light dry brushing you see there. And there I am showing the progress of that background. And here we go. So now I've added some silicone around certain patches to try to get a root effect. And then put some substrate on that, and then finished up the dry brushing. As you can see, there are still some holes here. Hopefully too much water doesn't get back behind the background, although the wood behind it is waterproof. But in hindsight, I probably would have done more coats of Drylock on the background itself. Here I am trying to stain. I used an oil-based gel stain, and then I'm going to finish with a water-based top coat, so it should be non-toxic, but just use caution with what stuff you use. I ended up stripping the top to restain it. Because this is particle board with veneer, the stain doesn't soak up well. I would recommend using a water-based if you can. I just kind of used what I had here and used a water-based top coat. There's the finished result as it's drying. And then here I have mounted the beginning of the Amazon misting system that cost $15-20. And then some lights here and a ceiling lamp holder, which can be found at Home Depot. There's what everything's looking like. And then here is, I'm going to show a picture in just a second, I think. Here is the way I've mounted. It's pretty flimsy, but I've essentially used sheet metal and put a screw through it and folded it around the misting nozzles. Went ahead and waterproofed most of the inside of this planter that I've installed in the background, but there is a hole for drainage. hopefully it doesn't drain behind the background. And then I've installed some LED, a deep heat projector, and my UV lighting. Getting ready to mount the track here. I think at this point the glass had already come in, or yeah, at this point the glass had come in. I'm just getting ready to set it up here, getting my cable management going. And like I said, I have a LED for the plants. Here's what the setup looks like finished. So far so good. I got lots of snake plant and pothos and fern in there. Here's Mr. Buddy. Don't judge his appearance. He's a rescue bluetongue, so he's a little rougher on the edges. But I taught him to use this ramp. So far the cage has been working really well. The doors come in and out nicely. And just let me know if you had any questions. I just wanted to make a quick update. Didn't really plan on making this into a YouTube video, but thought I'd share. Thanks, guys.